episode number 40, Wrestle Folks, the podcast. My name's Thomas Green. Find me on Twitter at NotThatTomGreen. This week, very special episode, very unique episode, as the commandant of the Funtime Arcade, if you will. My partner in crime over on that YouTube show, Joe Gagne, of Joe Gagne's Funtime Pro Wrestling Arcade. We do a special episode to celebrate 50 episodes of that web series. Instead of doing the normal episode talking about wrestling and fandom and all that fun stuff, it's kind of a Q&A. We took questions via Facebook and Twitter and email even from fans of the Funtime Arcade. We answered those this week. It's a special Funtime Arcade extravaganza, part of the week of Funtime we're currently experiencing. Also on youtube.com/MikeandTomPresent. If you've never checked out the series, first off, you're an idiot. But go over there, check it out. We're 50 episodes in as of this coming Friday. So much good content. We got quite a following. As I believe we mentioned during the conversation, our WrestleFest episode reached 30,000 views recently. So, people dig it. Whatever, it's cool. I personally, it's the coolest thing I do besides this podcast or breathing. I enjoy it very much. If you've never seen it, essentially, it's video reviews of old wrestling games. And we throw some comedy in there, we throw some humor. It's just the right blend of people, video game nerds looking for that info, and then wrestling nerds who like when you make fun of wrestling. It's a good blend for everybody. It's a really solid series. I'm not just saying it because I enjoy working on it. But if you have not checked it out yet, youtube.com/MikeandTomPresent. We've covered everything from, like I said, WrestleFest to pro wrestling for the NES to WWF No Mercy, all the THQ hockey games, and some weird ones too. I highly suggest you go check out our Surgeon Slaughter's Mat Wars episode. The weirdest game in the history of the world, Surgeon Slaughter's Mat Wars. Right now, we're going to go to the conversation with Joe, get about an hour's worth of questions from the Funtime Arcade fans. If you've never checked out the show, do that. If you've never checked out Wrestle Folks, if you're a Funtime Arcade fan who's never checked out this podcast, highly recommend you do. There's a bevy of archives you guys can check out, all 40 episodes of Wrestle Folks. And essentially, I try to have on comedians or comedy writers or just my funny friends talk about wrestling for an hour or so every week. I've had pretty solid names on. Mike Lawrence, a comedian who's done Conan and At Midnight. He was on a few weeks ago. We talked about some coked out pro wrestler promos and such. I had UFC fighter Filthy Tom Lawler on a few months ago. That was a heck of a conversation. I highly recommend my conversation last week with LA-based comedian Mark Gonzalez. Really had fun doing that. One of my favorite episodes ever. If you're into former WWE writers on podcasts, my pal Brian Mann's been on a couple of times. It's something for everybody who like funny people and clever people talking about wrestling. That is, we've got you covered. Check out the archives. If you're a Funtime Arcade fan, just checking this out for the first time, download some episodes, subscribe on iTunes, leave a 5-star rating, and then type up a little review. It'll help people hear this show. And, I don't know. It's fun. Speaking of fun, let's go talk to Joe Gagne about the Funtime Arcade after the record scratch. Here we go. Alright, I am here with Joe Gagne, who is, of course, the emperor and commander of Joe Gagne's Funtime Pro Wrestling Arcade. We work on it together. This is a weird special episode of the podcast in that it's not necessarily the usual formula. If you want that, Joe did an episode of Kevin Ford's Fan to Fan, which is elsewhere on this iTunes feed. Find out all about Joe's wrestling fandom and such. This is specifically about the Funtime Arcade pro wrestling fandom. It's part of a week of Funtime, where elsewhere you'll be able to find all sorts of new fun videos. And Joe, this is a podcast.
Yes, it is. Sorry, a funny person is not on the show as per normal, but we soldier on.
Yes. You're a draw, Joe. You're a draw. I guarantee you,
Mm,
downloads will be up because we'll put this out in the Funtime Arcade things, and people will be like, "Oh my goodness, Joe Gagne!" Thousands of YouTube views. So yeah, we instead of just going through weird conversation and such, we got a ton of questions from people on the Funtime Arcade Facebook and Twitter, and I even got one emailed to me.
really?
So yes, so I figure we'll just go through those, and it'll kind of be the narrative for the hour or so. Actually,
Cool.
we'll start with the email one because I'm not sure. I know I don't have an answer for this one. You might. Stephen Bryn. Um, I I apologize. I'm gonna butcher a lot of last names throughout this, so I apologize to everybody. He emailed, "What was your favorite theme song on Saturday Night Slam Masters?"
Ooh, don't. I'd have to go back because I don't remember those all that well. Sorry. No, I don't know. I'll just say Mike Hagock because that's pretty much the correct answer to any question. So
Yeah, I mean,
I'll go with that. Sorry, Steve.
that's who you should vote for in general. So yeah, let's move into the top of the list now. I just wanted to get the email one out of the way, so he got his proper credit. Let's start with this gentleman at Jordan Wrights on Twitter. What's the one feature or mechanic that you think wrestling games have overlooked that you'd love to see in a new game?
Um, things that are what I really miss is like in the old THQ games where you had like four separate sets of outfits and you could edit them. And it seems now we're just stuck with like you either have all right, here's the Miz and that's what he wears, and that's that. And if you're lucky, you get a retro outfit or something. I miss that. I think that's that was like a lot. I remember when playing Revenge and Scott Hall jumped to I think NWO Hollywood and you could change his outfit to have red on it, and it was like wow, that's really cool. That's something that's happening right now, and you could reflect that. And I feel that's missing, and I don't know why that went away, considering we're on, where we 4 consoles later. But what are you gonna do? What about you? What do you
Um,
think?
well, first off, I think you can do that in
Really?
WWE 2K14 because I've seen stuff on YouTube. Like there was one guy who created Ms. Elizabeth. Killed me. Um,
Ah,
but
God
uh,
bless.
but yeah, and I'm almost positive it was his Miz. He just like put him in a dress. Like I'm almost positive you can do that in this game. So I don't
Do
know.
you have to like
I read books. So go ahead.
do you have to create a wrestler and then edit them that way?
I think the way they have it set up, like you have to go in to create a wrestler, but then from there you edit it.
Oh,
You edit the design of the normal guy. I think because that's how you do it with the entrances. Like if you want to edit somebody's regular entrance, you have to go to create an entrance, and then just find the guy in there. Um, so as for me, feature or mechanic that actually I just thought of it. I'm not huge into like other sports games, but last week I had some time because we got crazy storm, so I spent just a ton of time on YouTube because I couldn't leave the house. And I think it's like NBA 2K14 or whatever has this crazy career mode, and like I don't give a crap about basketball games, but I got wrapped up in watching the videos because like you watch the dude start like from being drafted out of college. You meet with his agent, and then you sit through the draft up until he gets drafted, and then you meet with the different teams, and it's like that's what's missing from wrestling games. Like at the very least, I think you've even brought this up before. Maybe I've confused you with somebody else. At least start the guy at NXT in career mode.
yeah. With Kevin Ford, I was like, have a career mode where you start in NXT and you have mostly made up people if you want, like they did in the UFC career mode. You just fight made up people and maybe a couple guys who you think are going to get called up to the main roster, and start that way. Go up to the you work your way up to the main roster. You have pay-per-views. Maybe you could like design merchandise or something like that, and you know join a stable. Things like that would be really cool. And we just have, I guess, universe mode now.
Yeah, it's like the Attitude Era mode was kind of cool last year. They've kind of just revamped, not even
Yeah.
revamped it, just thrown a new paint, a coat of paint, if you will, as the WrestleMania mode. But it was kind of cool for one year. But yeah, it's It'll be October 2004, or is it going to be? I think they're skipping a year even to get all the bugs out. I think they're not releasing the game until 2015.
Really?
Yeah, I read that somewhere. I'm sure I'm wrong because I am, but sorry. I mean, it'll be 15 years after the THQ games before we get another one of these games. And we like I mentioned, the NBA games are pretty much a movie that you just play through now.
Yep.
Why shouldn't wrestling, which is essentially a really badly acted movie that pretends to be a sport, not also be that? I don't get it. But especially with NXT essentially being ECW now, it's just the third brand, especially
Yeah.
with the network. And they're acknowledging Emma is just a person we need to know. We should already know her, according to the commentary on Monday. Oh, hey, that's Emma from NXT. They're kind of acknowledging it's just the third brand, so why not have it included? I don't know. Let's see. Moving on, I'm actually gonna, because there are a number of people who asked about specific games. Yeah, for you to cover. I didn't know if you wanted to address them all separately or just give them all the blanket. We'll get to it eventually.
I mean, if it's out there, we'll probably get to it. We'll have to see what people are interested in seeing. Are they interested in just kind of jumping to maybe the next SmackDown games? Do you prefer the more obscure ones we covered? Do you prefer more well-known ones? Should we go right to I don't know, Saturn, Dreamcast? You tell us, and we probably won't listen.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we're getting at. Well, like this guy here, Justin Cook, wanted to know when we're getting to the GameCube and original Xbox games. And then somebody else, Kyle Rieger, who had a couple other questions, wanted to know when we're gonna do Queen of Queens, which is not the Triple H training game, by the way.
If only. Uh, I have to get a GameCube and actually, if I have an Xbox 360, it's backwards compatible, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's
Then
not
yeah,
like
I could
yeah.
probably get to those sooner rather than later if people really want to see them. They shouldn't be too hard to snag a copy. I like how I'm asking all these questions. I'm supposedly an expert, and I'm just like, how does this work?
See, that's what
Can you
that's
do
what I love
this?
about the series is you've become the wrestling video game guy. Like
I
everyone
know.
just assumed, like for instance, that you were up on the WWE THQ games when what was it? Last year was the first one you had played in a decade.
That's right. Yeah, and
Uh,
I'm like, oh, I guess I'd better get in on this. That's why I don't do online play because I'm sure people would want to just beat my ass and brag about it. So
that and I don't and
I'm like Ryback when it comes to arm wrestling. I just refuse.
that's ridiculous. Ryback, not you. Um, though the other reason why you would want to do online play is because everyone is like has all their stuff jacked up. So it's like
Oh yeah.
fighting Fedor in like 2005, and you're I don't know rookie Machida, and now we're just throwing out MMA references and going over people's heads. Let's see, Joe Ciano at @a_Magic Man on Twitter. Most glaring wrestler missing from the roster of any game. Who was not included that absolutely should have been?
It's probably if you remember the Royal Rumble series of games, they had a staggered release. The Super Nintendo one came out first, Genesis one came out later, and they took out the Super Nintendo had Ric Flair, Mr. Perfect, Yokozuna, and Tatanka, and they were taken out in favor of I think it was Rick Martel, Hulk Hogan, Jim Duggan, and I think Papa Shango. And like Flair, I get he wasn't he left early '93. You want to take him out, but they took out Yokozuna, who was the champ for like most of the year, and I don't know why he wasn't in the Genesis. It was just really baffling because he was in. It wasn't like he was left out of that year's games. He was in the Super Nintendo, and they did not see fit to have him in the Genesis for whatever reason. They replaced him with people who weren't with the company anymore.
As for me, it's not so much glaring as in I would want to play as the guy. No Mercy in the story mode. Stevie Richards is included as like the top heel or one of the top heels. And it was clearly, if you read the dialogue, because they based it off of like a real storyline, I think. And it was like the Big Show. But the Big Show was sent to OVW.
Yeah, he got
Before
sent to
that,
Fat Camp that year, so
yeah. So yeah, they had to shoehorn Stevie in essentially doing Big Show's dialogue, which that to me is the most glaring, as in this man is clearly playing somebody else's role. But yeah, the Royal Rumble one is because I get the Sega version.
yeah,
Uh,
me too.
yeah, so it was like the biggest rip off in the world. Oh, I
That
get.
never really used to be. I mean, when you had rosters of like 6 or 8, you usually got all the top guys, and nowadays you just get pretty much everyone that's available, and who you don't get, you hopefully get via downloadable content. So I don't know, not really an issue these days.
No. Though it's funny, like this year, 2K14, which we got another 2K14 question here in a second. I loved how you had to wait like 6 months to download AJ Lee's finisher. Like it was like the Shining Wizard, I think
I
originally.
think so, yeah.
Yeah, and they just released the Black Widow or whatever it's called. Um, Joey Navarrete, I hope that's how you pronounce his name. It looks like the word machete, so I'm hoping that's how I pronounce your last name, Joey. What would you rate WWE 2K14? He did not give a system. I would assume stars as opposed to nachos or popcorn.
Uh, I mean, it's very similar to last year with just a few people being tweaked, and attitude mode's been replaced by WrestleMania mode, and I thought the roster was great. I think it's kind of BS how people that debut in at WrestleMania can't be available when the game comes out in November. I just think, like, my sense is I've been playing as so many of these characters for so long. Like, okay, I've been playing as John Cena for 10 years, same with Randy Orton, and it's not anyone's fault. It's just like I've been playing these characters in these modes. Like, what? I mean, Hell in a Cell was introduced in '97. TLCs were 2000. Elimination Chamber 2002. What new mode or what new kind of match has there been in that time? Like scramble match they had last year. That's not really all that exciting, and it's just it's they're in a tough spot because it's how do you know make things different when things don't change all that much these days.
Well, and not only that, but like the product's gone backwards in that they've scaled back the gimmick matches.
Yeah,
So like the Inferno match just came back this year, and I want to say there was no Inferno match last year or
I don't
this year,
think
one of the
so.
two. Yeah, and so they're literally taking match like options away because it's not representative of the product anymore. And you don't want kids who have never watched the Attitude Era being like, why don't they set guys on fire anymore? Which but they did. So it's so
Can
good.
you
It's good on them.
can you even like throw guys off the top of the Hell in a Cell anymore? It
I
seems
don't.
like they did away. I
I think it's like a cutscene in the Foley Taker deal from the Attitude Era mode last year, but I don't think you can because it used to be it's just whenever you wanted to, blip off the
Yeah,
top.
I know that was the best. I missed that. Like, I don't know what's the harm. They're not. Maybe you would expect too much from your real life wrestlers, but still, it's just a video game.
Like with that, like I remember it being like hard to not fight up there and have someone even fall off.
Yeah, you would just go up there, and if you moved wrong, you'd fall off, and then you just get right back up. But maybe
Uh,
that's you would throw people off buildings in that game. I don't think
oh, you could dive off the SmackDown fist,
Yeah, that's right too.
which I don't think that ever happened in real life, and I
No, that
kind of
never
hope it
ever
didn't.
happened. That nothing came close to happening.
And
But still, I appreciate it.
the way they climbed up was so weird. Like I don't think you could actually climb the set the way they climbed
No,
today.
that's not possible. But still,
Speaking of match modes, I do you remember it was like at the dawn of the internet, when No Mercy came out. Like they had these websites that would advertise these hacks where like you type in blah 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 into your game thing and you would be able to like hack the game so it would give you barbed wire tables or naked women or it was ridiculous and I absolutely tried to do it and it never worked.
no, I don't think I never saw those. I probably just assumed they were BS. So I was trying to get all my data back after it got erased. But
Oh, that's right. You see, yeah, No Mercy is the game where, yeah, you
I
just
remember,
need to
yeah, I
get the
took my
first
Vader.
cartridge. Yeah, you
I'll
got
use my Vader, create a wrestler. Oops, six
true,
months worth of work
true
now.
story. I created Mark Starr in No Mercy.
Why
It's
not?
been,
I mean,
it's been
something you'd
hours.
have all the moves. Like,
Exactly, and just blue tights, white boots, whatever.
who
Uh,
who would you create? Because I see people like maybe you create yourself as something. Some people do like other video game characters like Mario and like Zelda and stuff. I think that always struck me as I mean, whatever, each their own. But that always struck me as odd. I would just stick to wrestlers who weren't in the game.
Right. Like what would Mario's moveset be?
I have no.
Realistically.
He would just jump on top of the double stomps. I guess would be
Yeah.
it.
But like you can't lock up double stomp, you
No,
know.
you can't.
You can't Irish whip double stomp. You know. You gotta have something in there, Mario. Mario doesn't know how to work. But anyway, moving right along, Jason D apostrophe D
Wow.
apost I can't pronounce his last name. He's on Facebook. The Agnostico or not? That's not even. No, that's horrible. The Agnostino. There we go, Agnostino. What game surprised you the most as being enjoyable? And he also has a request. I missed this. He'd like to see Champion Wrestler from the 80s arcade realm.
I get it. I've never played that. I get a lot of requests for that. I'll have to check that out and see what I can do. What game surprised me? Uh, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that while I rack my brain?
Um, I like WWF Raw a lot more going back than I thought I would because of, but it was like at the time I just associated it, like looking back, I just associated it with like, Royal Rumble, Super WrestleMania, whatever. And when I was a kid, I hated those games because I sucked at them. But
Yep.
like Raw had all these cool gimmick matches, like Bedlam, and had a really good Survivor Series match. And I don't know. And then there's another one I'm thinking of. Oh my goodness, I'm gonna um, 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 we're both thinking this is awesome podcasting, by the way. Yeah, I'm just gonna go with Raw until I can think of the other game. I'm actually gonna pull up the list of games we've done so I can hopefully rack my brain.
Yeah, Raw's a good answer because I remember not thinking much of those LJN games. Or like you said, Raw had a lot of fun options and a good roster. So I was cool with Raw. I'm trying to think. I don't know if anything really surprised me. Like when I went back and played something for the first time, I'm like, man, this is tag team wrestling for the NES. Sure was better than I remembered. Like, well, no, I think my notions I had when I first played the games largely held up.
Actually, you know what? Power Move Pro Wrestling surprised me because I had it when I was younger, but I just always associated it as a bad off-brand game.
Yeah, you would think if like off-brand games can have a bit of a sketchy history, especially later on. But no, that was a fun one.
And not only
So
was it fun, it was hilarious.
it was. They had a
Oh,
lot of character to it.
yes, the ring announcer was the best. That's a game. That's okay. That's the one video game I would rip off characters from for Creator Wrestler,
There you go.
but they were wrestlers, so uh,
Someone bought that game just because of our video we did. I saw on Twitter. So
yeah. Look
that's
look what you're
keep
doing,
going.
Joe.
I
You're
know
influencing the way people are spending their money in this economy.
the $2 he probably had to spend on that.
What if he spent like 50? What if he got like a real bad deal? Like he spent like a quarter of a paycheck on a video game.
Oh my god, I feel terrible now.
You should. You should feel awful, and I should hear your tears. Let's see. At Hectzilla on Twitter. Um, this might be sarcastic. Why is WCW Backstage Assault so awesome? Hashtag power bombs into bathroom sink.
I guess the answer is his own question. No, that game's terrible. It's good for a laugh, and I think that's one of our funnier episodes. So it has some merit in the world, but no,
And see,
that
that's
game.
and that's the thing, because I hate when people suggest good games for us to review, because those aren't the
Yeah,
funny ones.
no,
Like Surgeon Slaughter's Mat Wars was one of my favorite episodes because it's so bad. Whereas, yeah, like I don't know, No Mercy, it was kind of hard to pull jokes
yep.
for that one
It
because
erased your game.
yeah,
End.
it's like walking up to a good looking dude and being like, "You're so handsome," and sticking your tongue out. I don't
Hmm.
know. Let's see. Jackson Herod, who I believe is from Facebook. I have these all typed up in a Word document, so I didn't notate that. Have you ever dabbled into the wrestling sims on PC? If so, what are your thoughts on them? For instance, TNM, TEW, EWR, etc.
I think I tried TNM in college. I couldn't get it to work. Does like Extreme Wrestling Revolution count? Because
Yeah, yeah, EWR, yeah.
I used to play that at I used to play that at work. I had a lot of fun with that. But I remember like I signed Chris Jericho back to WCW, and he was always unhappy, like no matter what happened. like he wins the TV title. Chris Jericho's not pleased, and I kept trying. Like I ended up cutting him, which I think I went out of business soon afterwards. But I was never super into those. But no, they're fun time wasters. I have some pretty good memories of those. But some people were like really nuts into them. I was more into like playing the actual wrestling matches. But no, they're pretty fun.
See, my thing with like, especially with EWR, is like I would be all like get really into it for like a week, and then be like, oh,
Move
this
on.
is
Yeah.
tedious. But then like a year later, oh, this is gonna be awesome if I could do this match and do this storyline, and then I'd be back out of it within a week. That was my thing. The TNM, I got into it probably years after it came out. And I just like, all you could do is run matches. And by the time I like got it to work on my computer and I was into it, EWR was already out, and you could actually do storylines. And you didn't, because I like, if you go back and look up TNM stuff online, it's people making up their own storylines and this and that, and just printing out like the logs from the moves in the games, which it's great for what it was at the time, but it like if you read the matches now, it's like reading English, and it was never nothing was ever in the proper tense, and I don't know. I mean, Oliver Kopp has all the respect of mine in the world for that and for all of his day job stuff, but yeah. I was super into Promotion Wars. I don't know if you ever played.
I don't think so.
It was my IATA Wrestling Observer Live uh, visual, and it kept my attention while listening to the live IATA shows. It
Oh
was like
wow.
this ugly blue screen, and it was essentially like the super most basic booking game ever. But I was all like into the time, like, oh, Hulk Hogan's old and he needs to be losing more, and Sean O'Hare's the future, so I'm gonna have him lose every time until he gets depressed and quits WCW, and then we'll be number one. So it
Did
was
you ever did you ever e-fed along these lines?
yes, I did. Yes. Do you remember the website, thesmartmarks.com?
Oh yeah.
Yes. They had an eFed, and I
Oh
was in
wow.
it, and I did a Sour Naro Saved by the Bell hybrid guy, and I was the only one in the eFed who watched indies, so I did all the cool indie moves. So it was super horrible, and like I would write all my own matches because I would like other people would be like writing my matches and be like, no, that's not how the move works. And this guy who has this character based on The Rock, no, that's not how B Boy's running dropkick works. No, we're gonna do things my way. And then I'd be like, oh, what if we did a Tornado Cibernetico? Or what if we did a 93-minute draw like Chris Hero and CM Punk? Okay, dude, whatever, you write
Yeah,
it.
you write that. I was gonna say
Yeah,
you write that.
and I did, and
Oh,
I was such a loser. Did you
those are
eat
the
that,
best.
Joe?
Oh, when I got like in in college, like when I got on the internet, I saw those. I thought they were the best thing ever. I probably dedicated way too much time to those, but no, those are super fun. I remember we would just get like text emails of the cards and all that stuff, and yeah, do people still do that? Is that
Yes, they do. I did a podcast with Kevin Marshall a few months back,
yeah?
and we
I
just
that
looked up
was
e-feds.
the best. That's probably the best segment ever. I remember I was doubled over cackling at some of those names. I remember like yeah, the PWI you would like pick 5 moves and write your character and send it in. Yeah.
I think there is e-fedding, but I think it's been overtaken by role playing on Twitter. I don't know if you're aware of that. I have like all the major role playing accounts following me on Twitter after that podcast. By the way, like no joke, there was one night after that podcast went up because they like we were making fun of them. I won't lie, but they thought that we were like championing. They were putting them over. Is what I'm trying to say. And so like one night I look at my Twitter follower account and I refresh and it like jumps up 50 something followers. And I'm like, what just happened? And I click to see what happened, and I had like Brock Lesnar follows you, Green Ant follows you, Jesse the Body Ventura follows you. And so I'm like looking into all this, and Like, for instance, you had fake Kevin Steen going back and forth with Jesse the Body Ventura about whether or not his arms were big enough to win the upcoming tournament. um,
Oh my god.
and Brock Lesnar was all like, "I'm above wrestling Green Ant because he's so skinny." And Green Ant's like, "Whatever. Hey, Caitlyn, my girlfriend, how's it going?" And
Wow.
fake CM Punk's talking about his 8 kids that he has with AJ. Like, it's super something or other. Oh my goodness. But yeah,
Whatever
that
makes you happy, I guess.
yeah. But yeah,
Awesome.
like all the Chikara guys have them. I know there's a fake Leonard F. Chikarason out there, which makes me nothing but happy. Um, which I'm sure if I'm knowing the real LFC, I'm sure he would have done it for like $30. Just been like whatever. Um,
Wow.
let's see. Let's go to Kyle Rieger here. He sent in a couple of questions. We already went to one of them, but let's get to the other ones that aren't requests. Favorite joke in an episode?
Oh, two main. Probably the indie montage and the Sergeant Slaughter's Mat Wars, which was all Tom, by the way. I just
No,
wrote a
okay,
note.
okay. I will not let you not take credit for that because you would put in the script to do it.
I just said cue indie montage, and you did this awesome thing. No, that was you picked all the wrestlers. You did the with it. Is this Josh Daniel or
It was it was a shot of Josh Daniels and it said like Josh Daniels parentheses or not Matt. Oh my goodness, the guy who's the Boston guy, John Walters.
John Walters? Yeah,
Yeah, or John Walters question mark. Um, that was fun. I people seem to that seems to be the one that always comes up with people, which I guess means it worked. Um,
I remember someone wrote in the comments about Scoot Andrews and said they were surprised he was in the montage. And I couldn't tell if they were surprised that he never broke out because he was talented, or surprised we put him in there because they felt he was a big star. Because like I saw him wrestle AJ Styles at IPW, and I'm surprised he's there. And I never figured out what that meant.
well, his username was like Ron Nemi 69, obviously. So
Well, there you go.
shoosh. No, it wasn't. Which, but Ron Nemi reappeared on the Evolve pay per views, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, he was doing commentary with Lenny Leonard for the FIP
Huh.
matches because apparently he's like the FIP commentator. Super
There
weird.
you go.
Hardcore
Hmm.
giant. This seems super masturbatory because a lot of the random jokes come from my demented brain. Though again, I got to give you credit. You write a lot more of the jokes than people give you credit for. Um, I want to say it's No Mercy episode. I had a piece of paper on the ground while I was editing, and I had just watched the I think it was the Mike Graham guest booker, or what was one of the real delusional ones.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I decided to do a guest booker bit because you had set this one up about your season, not your season mode, but your career mode, and it read off like you were listing off this grand scheme to take over the WWF, and then I drew up like the Sean Oliver whiteboard,
Mm,
and I don't know,
that's right.
I watched it recently and it popped me. So, but I also feel super weird listing off my favorite joke considering I created it. So I don't
Yeah.
know. That's a weird question, Kyle. Weird question. Um, and then Kyle also asks, "What's the worst wrestling game ever in your opinion?"
I would probably go the original WrestleMania for the NES, just because of the expectations we had, and I felt let down. Like it wasn't just a bad game. Like we were. This was the hopes and dreams of a young generation that were just dashed to bits by LJN. So I'll stick with that. There are many worthy ones. The King of the Ring one, just backstage assault. Plenty of candidates, but I'll go with WrestleMania.
I will go with I was gonna say backstage assault, but you can play as Vince Russo in that game, and I don't. There once a year there's fun and being had in playing as Vince Russo. Um, and I don't want to go with WrestleMania just because I don't know. It's like an iconic thing for me. That's the very first game I ever got to rent. I'd feel like I was turning heel in the game. Um, I will probably go honestly with I'm having a tough time because there are so many bad games we've done. We've done a lot of bad games.
Yerp.
Let's see. Uh, Goodness gracious, this is great audio. Takedown, the weird
Yeah.
Commodore game. I mean, it's weird, but it's not as weird as Sergeant Slaughter's Mat Wars. So if it's not the weirdest and it's bad, it has to be the worst. And again, that was such a weird game that like we couldn't even figure out how to play it right. And somebody in the
No.
comments was like, "Oh, there's a reason why it says that the guys have always never wrestled. It's because you didn't save it right, or blah 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 blah."
Yeah, it's because you could save, but I didn't have a disc handy. Sorry, I didn't have a floppy disk handy.
Yeah, that's the thing about these videos is we're not traveling back to 1986
No.
to do this stuff. Uh, and the micro league wrestling game was pretty bad too, because it was essentially just you typed in what move you wanted to do, and then the game would maybe do it.
Yeah, I remember. You see the ads. It's like, holy cow, this looks incredible, and then it's like 2 frames of animation, and you pick a move and you hope for the best. Yeah.
It was pretty bad. And some of these games that people are like, oh my goodness, they're so awful. People need to go back and play these other games to see how
Yeah.
what awful is. Like WWF Attitude or the ECW games. The ECW games were at least redeemable in that they were ECW games. As bad as they were, at the end of the day, you get to play as Tom Marquez. That's pretty badass to me. That you got to be the friggin' prodigy
Yep.
in a video game, and you didn't have to create them. I don't know. And like Mikey Whipwreck was in one of those games, and that to me was cool because he was my favorite wrestler when I was 12.
Oh.
So that's a fun fact nobody needed to know. Um, let's see. Brian A. Henniger. What wrestling game, in your opinion, is the most overrated, and what is the most underrated?
I don't know. I racked my brains on this. I tend to think that the games people really like, your Revenge, No Mercy, Here Comes the Pain, which we haven't done yet, but I really like those. I really don't have dissenting opinions there. Something underrated, I think if you look at pro wrestling for the NES, that game did so much right, and it's still fun to play for such an early game. Like, I don't know if that gets the respect it deserves.
That's definitely a good one. For overrated, oh man, like you said, the good ones are really good for a reason. Trying to think. Oh my goodness. Overrated. Yeah, there's really not. I mean, the only thing I would say is I think that Revenge is slightly better than WrestleMania 2000 in terms of gameplay, but that's like picking heads or tails on a coin. That's just my personal preference, but everyone else is justified in thinking the exact opposite. Um,
I'm just so skewed on Revenge because that was my senior year of college, and there's always someone to play with, and I remember like just marathon sessions of that. And when you have what was it, WrestleMania 2000, and you live by yourself, there's no one to play with. It's really a different experience. And I think if people were like really into WCW back then, I think that game holds a little bit more meaning to you than if you were like a WWF guy. I'm sure the other ones hold more meaning for you.
Absolutely, like you said, like that was right on the edge of wrestling being like at the absolute peak, and then it's like 6 months later, it was still really super popular, but you just couldn't get four people over to your house to play a video game all night just because it's
Yeah.
wrestling.
Yep.
In terms of underrated, yeah, pro wrestling for the NES is an excellent one. Trying to look back again, my memory is horrible in these games. Um, let's see, Power Move Pro Wrestling is
Yeah.
that's one people never ever bring up, and it's super solid. Um, trying to WCW versus the World is one that I think kind of gets a bad rap in terms of it's part of that whole THQ AKI, I almost called it Aki series, but it's that's in that lineage. It just happens to be the first one. Then it was on PlayStation.
Yeah.
So I think it kind of gets a bad rap in that regard. Same with World Tour. I mean, it doesn't have the super cool like roster. Like Revenge had an awesome roster, and this one had like 20 dudes. But I think it's just as good of a game. It's just they were kind of super lazy in terms of just throwing 10 dudes in and having everyone wrestle at the Tokyo Dome.
Yeah, everyone looked like a mannequin, and they were kind of lazy in the a bit of the presentation, but I mean the gameplay was just like staggering. Every game got better, so that one kind of gets forgotten. But if you remember like playing that game like that, like I said, that made me go buy a Nintendo 64 when I played a version, and I played that game.
And actually, another one I think is super underrated for the same reason is WWF Superstars, the arcade game,
Yeah,
because it was the grandfather of the best wrestling arcade game. So it kind of gets the shaft, but it's a damn good game in itself. You know, it's really fun, and you get to hear Andre as read by someone doing Andre while eating paper.
no one can stop Mega Box.
And Ted DiBiase was voiced by a lady.
I'll put you to sleep with my $1 million dream.
Oh goodness, great! Yeah, that I would love to. Like, I'm sure it was. I don't want to sound racist. I'm sure it was some Japanese dude who had never watched the WWF. Who's like, what would this guy sound like? And they at least kind of had an idea what Andre sounded like because he did all those tours.
Sure.
And I mean, DiBiase did all Japan stuff, but not as the $1 million
No,
man. So
I don't think he was cutting a ton of promos over there.
no, no. Yeah, I think that's good in terms of overrated and underrated, just because again, like we keep reiterating, there's so many bad wrestling games that the good ones kind of stand out as the good ones for a reason, because they're the good ones. It's not like people are going out of their way to be like, oh my goodness, WrestleMania Challenge is so good when it's not, because we don't have that many games to go off of that are good.
No.
Um, and I also and again, I also will go back to Raw, uh, just because it had some really cool game modes that the other games didn't have at the time. Let's see. At Jamie OD on Twitter, bit of a confusing question. Hopefully, we can make a little sense out of it. I'm sorry for insulting you, Jamie. Pick any game and list what modes and gimmick matches you wish they had. So I'm thinking like Castlevania or MPA Jam. No. Try to narrow it down to something. Well, like the ECW, the second game had all the game options, but ECW matches. Um, because like the Anarchy Rules game, I wanted to point out, it had like the UFC mode pretty much, and the Lions
It
Den
did,
or
that's
whatever.
right.
Which would have been awesome if it was any other promotion but ECW. And it had a brimstone match, which again would have been awesome if it was not ECW. Um,
It wasn't just that you caught fire, you incinerated it.
which I think was a little out of the ECW budget, though. Again, they did that to somebody, or was that XPW I'm thinking of, where they like the XPW set fire to Supreme, which was something or other.
That's right, you didn't stop, drop, and roll.
No. Um, and then there's like the Balls Mahoney Yushi where he claims he set like 4 people in ECW on fire. So I'm sure they did set somebody on fire because Balls Mahoney wouldn't lie. Um, let's see.
Hmm.
I'm trying to narrow it down to a game because we've covered 50 games and we have hundreds more to go probably. That's a lot of games to go through, and we only have an hour here. Um, is there one you would like to narrow it down to?
Um, I'll just say, like, I hope I live to see the day we can have 4-on-4 Survivor Series matches in in our WWE games. That's because those are like a really, I don't know, underrated, but they're like some of the most fun things to do, and we're still stuck on 3-on-3. And if I could do a cybernetical match, I would. I don't care if I have to scroll through who's on the apron. Just like let me do it. Like that. If you could play for like, I would play hours if I could do that. Just come up with like, 8-on-8, 10-on-10. Like that's if they aren't creating new matches, that's a way you can create one yourself. That'll be. I don't think anyone would be like, oh, that doesn't sound fun. I don't want to play that.
It's the ultimate, like, you can play with yourself or play with a buddy game, match mode. You can have fun either way. Yeah, it's ridiculous. We're in 2014 and we can't do that, considering, like you've brought up, you were able to do it on the Super Nintendo, and
Yeah.
heck, Royal Rumble for the Dreamcast. You could have like 10 guys in the ring at the same time. So it's not even just, oh, the games look so good that they can't control the power of it. Well, the Dreamcast games looked like about as good, if not a little bit better than the PS1 games, and they could control it or they could handle it. So there's got to be a way. But and I always love, by the way, in like the career modes, when like you can tell whoever wrote the story wanted to do a Survivor Series match, or like if it's like the Attitude Era mode, and they needed to do an elimination match. Oh well, we just have to leave guys off and pretend it didn't happen.
Yeah.
It's frustrating. Um, yeah, I'm sorry, Jamie, if we didn't go through all the games and pick all the modes we wanted. But again, we're only here for an hour, so. But again, appreciate your question. Let's see. This guy has a last name that I think he might be trolling me at this point. James C. Zix. It's Szypka. I don't think that can't be a last name. But nonetheless, James. This kind of goes along the line of maybe overrated or whatever. What wrestling game was the biggest disappointment, in your opinion?
I'll go back to that first WrestleMania game just because I didn't have expectations, but it was just like, oh my god, we can a WWF video game. This will be great, and it wasn't. And that I remember renting it and being so disappointed, and then renting it again later on because I thought maybe I just wasn't playing it right. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I didn't give it a chance. And nope, I was right.
I would go with the first ECW game. I
Mm.
remember this is time. This isn't necessarily going back and playing it for the series, but when it first came out, I remember I pre-ordered it. I was not a super,
Wow,
yeah, because apparently I thought it was going to sell out.
big run on them too.
But yeah, I pre-ordered it, and with the pre-order, you got a VHS tape called Hardcore Revolution. I would hope it was called Hardcore Revolution and not something else, considering that's the name of the game. But and you got that. Sorry, and then you got like a strategy guide. And I got, for some reason, I got the strategy guide and I got the VHS tape before I got the game. So I was reading the strategy guide, and I also had the WWF Attitude Strategy Guide, because apparently these games were so hard to beat that I needed strategy guides. Um, but I'm looking through it, and I'm noticing it's like the exact same thing, just kind of sort of like, oh, Rhino needs to do this, whereas Stone Cold needed to do the exact same thing with the Stunner. But it's like, whatever, ECW, awesome, awesome. By the way, that VHS tape was like 30 minutes long, and it was a New Jack promo. It was a match from November to Remember '99. It was Tajiri, Jerry Lynn, and Super Crazy. I want to say some combo of the cruiserweights in the company at the time, and then it was like a Mike Awesome deal, Mike Awesome promo. So that was an
Hmm.
awesome VHS tape, of course, because Mike Awesome's promos were great.
That's
Um,
gonna say.
and they were something. And then no, then the game shows up, and yeah, it's Attitude, which I
Yep.
mean, to my credit, I was excited for the first week because I never got to play Attitude, because trashy white trash family time story. My ex brother-in-law stole my copy of Attitude because he wanted to sell it to get drugs for my sister. So yay me. So I wasn't quite, oh my goodness, Attitude at first, but after like having it for a week and going off of the 3-day rental that I had of Attitude at Blockbuster, realized the only difference was that this game did not have the Owen Hart tribute at the beginning, which that would have been weird if they were that lazy.
They just left it in.
Yeah, um, which yeah, and that was always awkward too. Like playing the games back even now, like, oh yeah, by the way, Owen Hart died like a month before this game got released. But we couldn't take him out, so here's here's a reminder: he's dead. Now go play as him. Uh, yeah. Let's see. Our final question, actually, from Adam Wafer. Thank you for having an easy name. If you could create perfect wrestling game, the perfect wrestling game, how would you create it, and how would you make it better than WWE 2K14?
All right. Well, I'm presuming this will. I don't know if he means the WWE series or just. I would go with that since that's more fun than just off-brand type of wrestling game. I'm gonna say, and I do believe we're gonna be headed to a time where, since they're doing the whole network thing and a subscription, I think there'll be some kind of monthly subscription to play the WWE game on your console somehow. It'll be constantly updated so that Amazon TV, well, you'll get to play her as her in a month. And as people come and go, they come and go from the game. It will be a thoroughly modern experience. No more like having to wait a year to play as the Wyatt family, hopefully. And I would bring back some. I mean, if they brought back the Here Comes the Pain control scheme, I thought that scheme was great. I love that scheme. I would love to see the the No Mercy style of gameplay too. But I mean, what they have now, it's okay, but they've done better in the past, which is just kind of baffling to me. But other things we've touched on, like career mode, a better career mode, like some kind of expanded elimination matches, things like that, I think would just be really be really interesting to me. And I don't, I mean, when you're really the only game in town and you pump something out every year, that's probably going to be at least moderately successful. I don't know if the innovation is going to be there, but we'll have to see what 2K Sports comes up with their first offering, whenever that may be.
Yeah, the whole see, what does it make sense to me in terms of them not doing that with releasing guys every month and just updating the game via Xbox or PSN Online is like you can do it with the created guys already. Like within a week, I could have gone on Xbox Live and gotten some pretty decent Wyatts and Usos and Hiroshi Tanahashi and probably Ishii and I don't know Masquerade Dorada as El Torito and as himself. I say that as if his real name is Masquerade Dorada. Um, but no, I mean that's the next. That's got to be the next evolution of this thing because you gotta think at this point, every all this hard, software, all this hardware, if you will, even software, but like physical discs have got to be going the way of the dodo bird, and the WWE's helping lead the way in terms of the content production. Why not go that direction with video games? I don't know, but going back to maybe the first question we got, I'd love to see a complete story mode that would take hours upon hours to beat, and not just okay, I rent the game for 2 days and I only play it for like a couple hours at a time, and I still beat WrestleMania Attitude Mode. I'd like to see a complete thing where I could develop someone from the ground up, and not just Jacob Cash shows up and now he's the champion,
Yep.
or which I'm wondering if Austin Aries would get a cut of Jacob Cass merchandise if they decided to suicide him and put him on TV.
Suicide him.
TNA won an award for that, by the way, from like some like social media group, like a major group, like gave them an award for suicide for being like, outside the box thinking, because it's not like the NBA could introduce a guy from their game and put him on one of the teams.
I suppose not. No.
It'd be a little hard. But yeah, like a more complete story mode where you have a guy, like it'd be amazing if you could start him from the indies up, but even if you just started him from like NXT, first day at the Performance Center, Triple H is all like, okay, here's how you lift weights. And then, I don't know, you have to like fight Tyler Breeze over his selfie phone and stuff like that. And then you make your way onto on the house shows, the main roster, and so on and so forth. And then
You do training with Bill DeMott to build up your stats, and you try to win the NXT title. And
yeah, like this.
Yeah, it just seems so easy to me. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's not like they would have to put a ton of effort into the NXT part. I mean, it's like such an easy like even the oldest games have the mode where you can go to a trainer and build up your stats.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, they love branding everything with their own name and stuff. They have it right there. And I don't. And the NXT arena is in 2K14.
Yes, it is. It's already there.
The
The hard part's done.
yeah, it's the arena's in there. The belts are in there. Both the NXT singles and tag belts are in there. Like I don't know, and it's just and it would be. I'm not saying it would be like it would be much better if like you got to control a guy from like inside and outside, but not even like having to break kayfabe at all, really. Like just have a guy like interact with somebody, and if he tells him, "Hey, I like you. You're my friend. I'll help you." He'll give you a title match or become your tag partner in a year. Or if you tell him, "Hey, piss off," he'll like run in your match and help Bo Dallas beat you for the NXT title. I don't
Yeah.
know. It's not things like that have been done in games for like a decade now. I don't get why it's so stinking hard. But yeah, we can get every aspect of Layla's entrance down pat. You know.
Mm.
Uh,
What do you think they're gonna do with like they've done, Attitude Era? You could be everyone from there, and WrestleMania. Like, are they like? I don't want to say the wells run dry unless they do the 70s mode, which would be kind of awesome. But
I'm thinking
like,
like Fatal Four Way mode, where you go through the 2 or 3 years of the Fatal Four Way pay per view, or Cyber Sunday,
oh no,
where someone on Xbox Live gets to vote what match you have next. Uh,
you're talking me into this.
yeah,
You're not dissuading me. This sounds great.
it's the future of social media gaming. Someone else gets to vote your next match, and I don't know,
Mm.
or I don't know. You get to relive all the really bad moments in wrestling history. Like they get the rights to RoboCop, and or they don't even know they don't even do that. It's just you have to wrestle Ric Flair with Lex Luger, and then a robot comes out and saves you, and they speculate whether or not he's a cop. Or it's like the Big Boss Man debut in WCW, where Shivati's like, "Oh man, that's a big man, boss," or something like that. It could be like, "Oh, that robot, he might be a cop." Uh no, I'm no Justin Shapiro, by the way, so the words aren't coming as easy to me as they are handsome old Justin. Uh, but no, like it's got to be something more complex, and because what would they do? They obviously are too stubborn to do like Survivor Series because you would have to do Survivor Series matches. Um, they did WCW a couple years ago, but it was the laziest thing ever, where they kind of sort of just it was like they did a time machine deal, but they didn't show the time machine where they had all WCW come back, but it was like guys in their prime. So it'd be like Wolfpack Kevin Nash teaming with Harlem Heat Booker T, Four Horsemen Arn Anderson, 1985 Ric Flair, and I think not Sting was, maybe Sting was in there, I don't know. But it was this weird mismatch of like every era of WCW in their prime coming back, and they lost to Triple H. Actually, that's one thing I kind of liked. If you're gonna do the mode, if you're not gonna do like the all comprehensive one guy career mode from the bottom up, something I liked that they did a couple years ago was they did like 3 different stories, but like they combined them all. Like they started with like Sheamus, and he like won the world title, and then he formed the United Kingdom with all the different like British and Irish people on the roster, and then like he got into a feud with Triple H, and then Triple H beat him for all the belts, and he stood tall as like all the champions because he's Triple H and he needs all the belts. And then you transition over to Triple H, and you get a story as Triple H for 4 months, and then they transitioned over to Jacob Cass or whatever. I liked that, but of course, again, the game was not as much fun as it could have been if they did other things. But whatever. Are you there, Joe?
I'm still here.
Okay. I was afraid I put you to sleep, so I don't know. But that's all the questions we had. We did almost make an hour just based off of the Q&A, which is pretty awesome.
Mm.
Is there anything else you want to say about the series? Any fun stories, anecdotes, thank yous, fun cat stories? I don't know.
My cat was just here. We should have asked her. I'm
My
trying to think of
my
fun.
cat's sleeping on my dog's head, so
Oh, okay.
yeah. They're weird like that. But go ahead.
Trying to think. Just yeah, we should try to determine which of us has the more difficult job because both seem to think it's the other, and I have no clue where you're coming from because I just play games and make goofball jokes and I'm done. And you have to like edit video, and I don't know how that works. I couldn't do that in a million years. It just seems like a pain. So I don't know. Maybe we should hold a poll.
Yeah. Well, like the tech, like the tech knowledge is, maybe a little more on my side, but you pretty much hand me the keys to the castle in that you send me the entire, script of the show along with the voiceover. So, and then you'll throw in little things like do this here, do this there. Then it's way easier on me than having to create something from scratch. So I don't know. I feel as if it's a super easy job. It just takes a little bit to compile things, and that's why it takes time to get the episodes out. I don't know. I don't know. I do feel as if you don't give yourself enough credit though.
I
So,
think I get too much credit because people tend to just like think I do everything because the show has my name on it, and people are like, "Wow, great joke, Joe," and I'm like, "Oh, I didn't add minimal to do with that." So
yeah.
it is a little different where most of these video game review series is just one person largely doing the work while we split it. So I guess people wouldn't expect that.
Well, whenever I see someone thank Joe, I consider myself part of Joe Gagne, part of the
There
Joe
you go.
Gagne brand. Uh, which means I'm also someday when you sell Joe versus the World to the WWE Network, I'll take 3% of whatever you get. That's a fun thing we can tell. I sent you this in an email about a year ago, when they were originally putting stuff together for the WWE Network. Because I had a couple of friends that at the time did work at the tower, and they were having writers like submit ideas for shows that would be on the network that never ended up happening because Vince McMahon thought he could get a network on television in under 6 months. That's absolutely the thing he thought he could do. Just pump out a bunch of shows, whatever. One of the ideas that was submitted was was a ripoff of the Funtime arcade, like dead set all of the WWE games and whatever games they can get the rights to make fun of. And in like parentheses in the little pitch that was sent out in a memo, it said it's kind of like the guy who does the show on YouTube. So it was a direct rip off of this show.
Kind of like it, you know.
Yeah.
Subtle
Um,
differences.
only like Todd Pettengill would have hosted it or something,
We.
which that would have been great. If, yeah. But
If I could be involved in something like that, have you seen the Conan O'Brien does the Clueless Gamer series? Have you
yes,
seen those?
yes.
I would do that with CM Punk, and I would be the he would be Conan, I would be the his assistant.
And that would last all of 2 episodes before
Probably.
Punk like threw something through a television shutter. It's like I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And then somehow Colt Cabana would adopt the show and yeah, eventually this would all just be part of the art of wrestling somehow. I don't know. That
That's where it
seems to
all
be what
goes.
happens if this Colt Cabana has an idea and then it becomes part of him. 'Cause he's a machine. He's a monster, if you will. I don't know. Um, yeah, I don't know if we're a fairly boring operation. So I want to think we're not not too much scandal. None of us have done drugs because of the show. Um, none of us have. I mean, there are fun like little. Hey, this person watches the show. That's kind of cool.
Hmm.
Like Chris Hero requested. What game did he request?
Power Move Pro Wrestling.
Yes. And like I know Trick Davis of IW Mid South fame is a huge fan of the show.
That may have been
Because
my favorite thing because I used to really like Trick in IWA, and then the thought of him watching the silliness I do is very endearing to me.
yeah, I was actually we were both at the same show a few months ago, and he
Oh,
like mentioned like, oh, when's the next episode coming out? Blah 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 blah. Like he was real excited over it, so that was kind of cool. Um, Player Uno, I know is a fan. I believe we've talked about that.
yep, I met him at WrestleCon, and the folks from C4 named their Saturday Night Slam Masters show. Got the idea from the Funtime Arcade. I was told by the promoter. Antonio the Promise Thomas.
That one I
Man,
love
yep.
because even though he's like the most likely, because he's like into like Alvarez's website and stuff, and he's like all public
Mhm.
about it. Like I'm like a huge Heartbreakers fan. Like they're like them and Deuce and Domino. Like if Deuce Not Domino necessarily, because he's got a whole new career and he's Cliff Compton now. But if Deuce was like, oh man, I love the Funtime arcade. That's it. I'm done.
Peaked.
Yes.
Shut it down.
Yeah, Deuce and Domino is like my favorite gimmick ever because I love love their theme song. But no, Antonio the Promise Thomas, that's awesome. We thought ACH was a fan, but it turns out he just wore a shirt that ripped off our design on a Jakara Eye pay-per-view.
Yeah.
But nobody corrected it for like a week, and we tweeted out a bunch of stuff about it, and we looked like assholes. So that was awesome. Yeah, if you are a wrestler who likes the show, send us something, and if you're a big enough name, we'll be like, oh yay. And if you're not,
oh, they'll come pouring in now.
Yeah, and if you're not, then screw you. No, I felt bad because I remember when we did the Nitro thing, where I went out and recruited a bunch of indie wrestlers to do like fake Nitro promos. I actually put out a deal like, hey, if you're an indie wrestler who watches the show and wants to do this, and then blah blah blah. And I did get a lot of people who weren't in the video, and I felt bad because they weren't. But at the end of the day, I think a lot more people would have recognized Darren Corbin and Jakob Hammermeyer than so and so from an indie in Texas that I've never heard of. I don't know. But yeah, so that's our story. You'd think it'd be a lot more exciting considering we're a big YouTube sensation, but
sure.
Yeah, whatever. So Joe, you have anything coming up other than the Funtime arcade that you would like to plug?
No.
Okay.
Pretty much it for a while. Still plugging through the 1996 WWF is just so packed. Like I may do the first like 3 months and do a show because it's just crazy the amount of people that show up and things that happen, and so that should be coming probably a bit sooner because I just watched the February in your house.
Yeah, you guys are nuts. You guys are freaking nuts doing that. It's great, and I love that you guys do that. But you guys are nuts because like you see these projects pop up all the time. Like, oh, I'm gonna watch 1999 WCW all the way through, LOL, and then they get to like 3 weeks in and they give up. You guys are 6.5 years into this thing. Like you guys started in '90, and you're committed to it. You're gonna do it through the end. So I have to applaud you on that. That takes real courage.
People like bully us into doing it. So people on Twitter like, hey, when's this coming up? When's this coming up? And they like, I feel like I guess I better do it. So there you go.
Which, by the way, I also love how everyone thinks that the Funtime Arcade Twitter is yours.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone. Which I guess it's kind of my fault because when I created it, I just made it yours with FTA at the end. But yours is at Joe Gagne. That's your personal one. If people want to actually follow you, and
I don't tweet a ton, although I actually was. By the time you hear this, it will have been a few weeks ago. I was at Raw and SmackDown tapings back to back, so I was tweeting up a storm.
The biggest thing I remember, by the way, is just you tweeting about Ryback walking around the ring.
That was so strange. And I was just there was a Biggie Langston Fandango match that was rather dull, so I just wrote Biggie wins with a Phoenix Splash. Holy shit! And Player Uno actually wrote what on Twitter. He responded.
Oh goodness!
And I just said I'm just seeing if you're paying attention. So,
but I will let you go, Joe, because you're a father and a working man, and you just yawned. So
I totally did. I'm so sorry.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine. It's late. I understand. You're a father and a husband and an upstate. You're everything Dusty Rhodes wanted us to be, and a human being. So I'll let you go. And
all right, thank you.
Thank you, and thank everybody for watching the Funtime Arcade, because it's been stinking awesome that we can count on putting up a video and it has over 1,000 views within the first couple of hours now. It seems like I'll put up a video and before I can even get it on Facebook or Twitter, it'll have like 70 views now, which is crazy. But yeah, thank you all so much. After the music that's under my voice that we cannot hear, but you can, I'll show the rest of my stuff. So don't press pause or stop. Thank you so much once again to Joe Gagne. Check out Joe Gagne's Funtime Pro Wrestling Arcade. It's something him and I work on together. YouTube.com/Mike and Tom present. 2 more days of content after this. Thursday, we'll have my commentary for Sergeant Slaughter's Mat Wars, the weirdest game in the history of wrestling games. My commentary for our episode on that. And then Friday, episode 50, things get freaking weird on the Funtime Arcade, episode 50. YouTube.com/Mike and Tom present. As for me individually, here's some stuff you can subscribe to, like, listen to, watch, so on and so forth. First off, follow the show on Twitter at WrestleFolks. Leave a 5-star rating on iTunes. Leave a review. Subscribe. Helps people hear and listen to the show, and that's what we're here for, right? Also, follow me individually on Twitter at NotThatTomGreen. I tweet a lot of things. Usually try to be funny. I'm not. But hey, a lot of people think I'm worth following, so you should too. At NotThatTomGreen. I usually shill Joe Gagne's Funtime Arcade in this section, but I don't have it to show. Don't know what else really to do. Maybe follow me on Tumblr, commonmonster.tumblr.com. If you have a Tumblr, I don't know. I'm lost. I'm lost here. Check us out next week. But for that, thank you for being cute.